It'd be very nice to meet you one day, Mr. Jimmy Savile, just,
Well,
you know.
if you've got a sister, you could meet me by bringing her along.
I mean, I haven't got any sisters,
I
but
don't usually meet fellas, but if you've got a sister, that's okay.
I've got a personal assistant called and part of her job description is that anyone I demand she greets, meets, massages, she has to do it. She's very attractive, Jimmy.
Well, that's a good start.
What kind of
start? You could send her along to do some research.
Would you like her to wear anything in particular, Sir Jimmy?
I'd actually prefer her to wear nothing.
Right. So you want my assistant to meet you naked? Okay. Well, that's not going to be a problem.
The headlines which are coming out in the papers: Russell Brand is accused of rape, sexual assault and emotional abuse. Okay, emotional abuse, everyone gets emotionally abused. You know, teachers emotionally abused students, parents emotionally abused students, taxi drivers are emotionally abused, okay? So, Star attacked 4 women between 2006 and 2013. That's a 6-year period, including raping one against the wall in his LA home and one he attacked when she was 16 years old, a schoolgirl he called the child. Now, we don't know what's right. We don't know what's wrong. We don't know what's he said, she said. We're going to go through it. Russell Brand has 11 million followers on X and 6.5 on YouTube. He is a big name. He is a household name. People know who he is. He isn't as big as Michael Jackson. I don't know about R. Kelly. He's certainly on the same level probably as Jimmy Savile. And this is like a very big problem because in the modern narrative, in the media, in the alternative media, suddenly we've got someone that has been accused by multiple people of sexual abuse, rape, etc., etc. Now, when the police go and look at cases like this, if they have one witness or one victim, sometimes it's not strong enough. If they have 2 witnesses or 2 victims, right, and those victims talk to each other, it's very difficult for the police because they can give the same story, they can collude. But when you have people, multiple people that do not know each other, that all have the same story, and there are likelinesses in the story, suddenly there's a pattern and the police become interested. And there are some patterns in this story on an energetical level, which I'd like to go through with you. Now, the bit that I really want to go to is this bit. This is something that shows a pattern, which 2 people have said that don't know each other. And to me, it smells funny. When you have an attachment to a demon, they work in an astral world and they come in or attach to someone that allows them into the physical world. And here you can start seeing morphing. David Icke talked about it when he talked about a Prime Minister of England, that they were in the same dressing room and he looked to him and the eyes went black. And this person had been accused of pedophilia. And here we read this. Phoebe told the paper he grabbed her and put her on the bed before describing how his eyes were black like the devil. This is not the only person that said this. Phoebe alleges he grabbed me and got me on the bed. She added, I saw something come over his eyes, I swear to God, like black. His eyes had no more colour. They were black, like the devil, like a different person literally entered his body. So and then whatever happened. So she's talking about someone entering into the body of this person and taking over and then raping. And Russell is allowing this entity to do something like that. Now, there's another person that says something similar. If we go here, this is by Nadia, a different woman. He's a lot taller than me and he has that glazed look in his eyes again. So this is something, a pattern which is happening. The other woman has said that his eyes went funny. This woman is saying that his eyes went funny. Now, sometimes you can see more than the other person. So when the eyes are going funny, the other person might see black, but you can't see black, you just see glazed. So I can't move, I told him, get off, pushed her up against the wall and raped her without a condom. Now the first one is that in the UK, for the American viewers out there, in the UK 16 is actually not something which is a big deal in the UK. In fact, you can get married at 16 with parental permission. In Scotland, which is the north of England, you can get married at 17 without parental permission, 16 with parental permission in the UK. And at 18, you can go and get married as you want. At 16, 17, you can join the army, you can leave school. You are not a child, but you are not an adult. It is a very vulnerable and difficult age, 16 and 17. So he hasn't broken the law doing something like this. 31-year-old with 16-year-old, lots of people won't like it. However, lots of people turn a blind eye, and in some cultures it seemed perfectly okay. So if in the West you are going to say that this is wrong, you've got to be careful, because cultures in other places and historically it has been okay, especially in the Islamic belief, and also with the kings and queens in England, where they'd marry 8 or 9 or 10 or 15, and you needed to have sex in order to make sure that the marriage had been completed, where people would watch. And yes, it wasn't very pleasant for the girl, but it probably wasn't very pleasant for the boy either. So I'm just going to go through this quite quickly. Alice, 16, and she had a penis forced down her throat, she says. All right, none of this is proved. Nadia accused pinning her against the wall in her LA home and raping her. I believe he may have done it with a finger. Phoebe, she was met at Alcoholics Anonymous. There is a problem here, because Alcoholics Anonymous is a drug. Therefore, meeting a celebrity at Alcoholics Anonymous, it could be pushed by a defense or a barrister that, you know, she was screwed up anyway. Rachel was a runner. She was very young and impressionable. She was also, she was shown his penis in her dressing room, and inappropriate advances. But then she went on to have a consensual sexual relationship. Jordan Martin, again, she's the one that was penetrated with a finger, not with a penis, as far as I understand. So there's different classes of rape. One with a penis is the worst, because if you do it with the penis, basically what's happening is you're creating an energetical link on an energetical level, because when you rape someone, it is a demonic act. I'll get into that in a minute. So she wrote a book. With the book, she probably made money. She did cover his name, and she didn't give it to her. So if you're looking at this from a Russell Brand side, Russell Brand told the 16-year-old, don't tell anyone because you can make money off me. And she had a penis in her throat. Which is a form of rape, but it's not from the vagina. Nadia, she's accused him of raping her. What happened is that she was with him one night, and then the next day, so she had sex with him the day before, which was consensual, and then the next day she went back, I believe, to the apartment, and then something happened where she was raped. Then Alcoholics Anonymous, probably not the best place to go while people are trying to recover who are addicts. Rachel, very young, very impressionable. She's been getting the attention of Russell Brand. She then goes and has a sexual relationship with him after she doesn't like what's gone on. Jordan Martin, she writes a book, it's published, and she would have got some money from it. Going against Russell Brand, you've got somebody, a businesswoman in LA who's made an accusation. Why would she lie? You've got Phoebe. She could have been taken advantage of at Alcoholics Anonymous. Also with the celebrity thing, he could have used to get her. Rachel, runners, they're middle class, usually educated people. Again, she saw in him a celebrity, and then wanted to have a relationship with him, and then realized she could make some money. And then Jordan, she's put it in a book and she's made money. So there's like arguments for and arguments against. I wanted to talk about like the morality of PR companies and agencies. So the agent, which is called Tavistock Wood, they had, I believe, Jordan Martin. She reported it, I believe, in 2014, okay? In a statement about Alice's 2020 allegations, maybe it's Alice, okay? So, I don't know, maybe it was reported by Jordan and then Alice or something has made some allegations. We're not sure. But in a statement, Tavistock Wood tonight said Russell Brand categorically and vehemently denied the allegations made in 2020, but we now believe we were horribly misled by him. Tavistock Wood has terminated all professional ties to Brand. That was in 2020. Today is 2023. They now believe that the allegations are may be true, but why would they suddenly believe that it's true on the night or the day before that these allegations came out in a documentary on Channel 4 television? The morality here is very much like Philip Schofield. They get dropped by their agencies, not because of allegations, but because of allegations have become public, and they want to defend their business. They are happy, they are more than happy to allow these people to work on their books as long as it's not public. But the moment it becomes public, they suddenly become moralistic. They are just as bad and just as culpable. These people should also seek some of the blame, and the blame should go on to them. So just so that you all know who that is, just so you know that Tavistock Wood, that's who they knew about the allegations at least since 2020, but I believe since 2014. I could be wrong there, and they did nothing. Now, Brand left the US when these allegations started to come out, which seems to be in about 2014. So he didn't deal with the allegations in America. He fled the country, and then the revelations have come out 10 years later. With sex abuse allegations, it is all very, very slow. If you look at the Jeffrey Epstein allegations, you know, these women are coming out 20 years because when rape or sexual abuse happens to people, they need time to process. They don't speak to people. They're confused. Also, maybe sexual abuse didn't happen and other people learn of what they had or what happened, and they can have ideas put into their minds. Of course, they'll want to get money from newspapers for giving their story. They can do interviews, they can do television things. Their names can be protected, their voices, their faces, everything. But they can still get a little bit of money, but they're doing it for the moral good, to expose somebody. Now, let's talk about exposing. Now, if you look at Donald Trump with Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels took money to shut her up, I think 100,000 from Trump or Trump's lawyer. And then suddenly she had this moral problem where she needed to expose what Donald Trump was doing. But the morality of it was that she would receive more money having exposed it than have taken money from Donald Trump to be quiet. So she was prepared to take money to cover up an affair. But then suddenly when she was offered more money, she felt that she needed to justify herself morally and to expose Donald Trump to the public. So it always comes down to money. This is a problem. When people like Stormy Daniels, they expose people for money, then it sort of puts people that really have been abused in a very difficult position. Same thing. When other things come out, like with David Beckham, he had an affair, and that was exposed and she got money. Gordon Ramsay, he had an affair, that was exposed and she got money. So they get money for a very short period of time, and it causes a genuine problem. People don't know if they should believe these people or not. However, with Gordon Ramsay and with David Beckham, it was an affair, it was consensual, there was no abuse, and it was just one. With Russell Brand, we're talking about 4 or 5 people, we're talking about very young people, and we're talking about rape, sexual abuse, and other things. So it's slightly different here. Now, going back to people wanting money for things. In 2014, Jordan Martin, she refused to give an account to the paper, which detailed their 6-month love affair. So she had a 6-month love affair with Russell Brand, but she got raped somewhere along the line. So did she get raped and then stop the affair, or did she get raped and carry on the affair? It's difficult to know. She's published a book. She's made money from the book. It's a hard one. Writing about the alleged experience, Martin accused Brand of coming up behind her after the incident and sexually assaulting her, and alleged he slides his hand down the front of her low-hanging jeans into her underwear and forces a finger inside of her. So that's the rape. So there are different types of rape. There's rape with pens, there's rapes with fingers, there's rapes with penises. When you rape someone with a penis, you're creating a marriage, if you like, between 2 bodies or 2 celestial units. And when rape is not something which I think humans do. I don't think it's part of humanity. I think it's something demonic. It's something where you do something to get power or to hurt somebody, and you leave lifelong damage in the other person. Now, if you look at this from a demonic point of view, the argument would be that when you rape somebody, the demon is actually sort of attached to you. And demons get their food from emotions, especially negative emotions. They can't eat apples and food, but they still need to like have something to keep them going. So it's working on energetical transfer. So when you rape somebody, the fear that that person has is taken in by the demon, and then the trauma and the psychosis and the abuse and the PTSD that the person goes through for the rest of their life, that energy is sort of farmed by demons because it wrecks everything around them, sends them into depression, makes them take pills, puts them on the system, turns them to drugs, turns them to alcohol, and can actually turn them into an abuser themselves. So this then carries on or precipitates the problem of abuse intergenerationally, where you've got a source of food coming in for these demonic entities. Now, having a finger put inside you is very different from a penis, but it's still classed as rape or sexual assault in this case. Now, I wanted to say something about this. For me, I think there's a big difference between a finger and a penis, and I think that it shouldn't be called rape. I think the two things should be defined, because what's happening is that when you say rape, people think of a penis and a vagina, okay? But what they're doing is they are watering down the power of rape by saying, oh, it also includes a finger, or it includes putting a penis in someone's mouth, because that's oral rape, or putting a pen in a vagina. For me, there's a big difference putting a pen in a vagina against someone's will and putting a penis in a vagina against someone's will. There's something completely different. When you go to the doctor for tests, you have things put into vaginas or penises or anuses in order to do an examination, right? Now, no one ever puts a penis into you, right? There's a big difference between putting in on something attached to another person that's organic into somebody against their will and an object. Not to say that the suffering is different. It might be worse in some cases, but I think there needs to be a distinction. And I think when the people start using the same words and vocabulary to describe both different types of abuse, I think you're actually watering it down, because I see the problem in the future being, oh, I was raped, and someone saying, well, it was probably just, a pen or something like that. And I think that this needs to be stopped. I think rape needs to have a very clear understanding of what it is. Now, Brand, it says here, other allegations reported by the paper claim that Brand's alleged attitude towards women became an open secret in radio and TV production, according to sources. While hosting his BBC radio show, The Times claimed it was told Brand and his co-host Matt Morgan would sometimes undress in the studio and encourage guests to do likewise. Now, going back in time, different things were not appropriate but accepted. It was accepted in the 80s and 90s to smoke at a child's birthday party. I remember being on airplanes in the 80s and buses and trains and people smoking. Today, you can't imagine that happening. The police come in, you get arrested, you get banned. Things are very different. Now, it might have been wrong to smoke on a train 30, 40 years ago, but it was accepted. And I think likewise, this sort of like touching women in the 80s and 90s, it was not correct, but it was something that was accepted and people dealt with it. Even Chris Evans, he sort of showed himself, exposed himself, and there were complaints, but people dealt with it. I think there's an argument between suppressing stuff and people not being able to deal with stuff. I think from the generation that I come to, people could deal with stuff more and suppressed stuff more. And the generation today, the snowflake generation, they can't take these things anymore. It's very difficult for them. And I think one of the problems that's coming along in my mind is that for things that happened in the past where people were traumatized or believe they were traumatized a little bit, when they're told today that what happened to them should evoke large amounts of trauma, they allow themselves perhaps to be more traumatized than they thought that they should, or they allow themselves to be more traumatized than they have been. Now, I don't know if that's the suppression coming out and liberating, that suddenly, yes, I am traumatized, or people say, well, it happened in the past, I should be more traumatized, so therefore I am going to be. Now, that's just speculation. However, in the past, things like this happened. There was a much more misogynistic attitude. Women were seen as different. But I don't think that you can judge past actions on the morality of today. If you're going to do that, which people are trying to do, and there might be some justification in some things, then, you're going to have to, like the movement whereby suddenly you judge, people in the past doing things that they believed at that time was correct, even though we believe it wasn't now. And there would have been justification back then to have understood that it wasn't correct, but they didn't listen. And then we cancel them, which is where the cancel culture has come in. I think you need to have a little bit of leeway. Why? Because if you're going to cancel people back then you've got to be prepared to be cancelled in the future of what you're doing today. And I'll give you an example. Take the LGBTQ community, right? Do you think that in the future, when people look back, they're going to say, we introduced pornographic books into childcare, into nurseries, into primary schools, we confused children, we gave them puberty blockers, we took them away from their parents, overrode their parents, took them to hospital, took massive amounts of arm muscle out, gave them fake penises, chopped their tits off, hormone blockers, gave them breasts, changed their hormones, and then when they realized that they had made a mistake, we detransitioned them and they were screwed up and in mental hospitals or whatever for the rest of their lives. But we shouldn't suffer for it. Because if you want to go and start attacking people for what they did in the past, then you've got to be prepared to put the doctors and the teachers that are pushing this LGBTQ woke agenda into prison in 20 or 30 years' time. When you've got a detransitioned person who's 60 or 40 and they say, this person at school who's 20 years older than me, they messed my mind up and made me destroy my body and I can't have children. I want them in prison. You're going to have to put them in prison as well. So you have to be prepared to punish the people in the future if you want to punish the people in the past. But the snowflake generation, it's all about me, 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 me. And there's a lot of narcissism involved whereby they think that, their own echo chamber world is the main world and will be forever. And they don't want to look at history because it hurts them too much to see bad things that happened. And the future they think should be created by their own ideology, except they never attack countries like Saudi Arabia, which have a very different ideology of killing homosexuals, banning women from talking or being educated, and killing people. As long as we don't touch the Muslims, that's okay, but we can do what we want on our own territory. Same thing with the feminists. Never see a feminist going to Saudi Arabia because they know what will happen to them. They'll really get punished, they'll get lashed, they'll get put in prison, they'll get hurt. So the feminists keep quiet about that. So do the LGBT. But on their own territory here, loudmouths, they can talk about it. And so, even if they believe that they're correct, they're running parallel ideologies that they accept are accepted in other cultures outside of their own. But if you are born into a Western culture, but you may identify with a culture outside of your Western culture that has contrary ideologies, you are not allowed to have them, because you're born in one type of culture or you speak one language. It's only accepted that you can hate gays or you can hate women if you come from a different culture. Not that you hate, but that's a harsh word. But you can have what would appear to be misogynistic or homophobic ideologies against people in your own culture because you identify with a culture which is very strict and religious, and that is protected and held in abundance in different geographical locations on the earth. A runner who worked with Brand when he presented Big Brother's Big Mouth alleged the star flashed her and made inappropriate advances on her. Rachel, not her real name, told the Times, a report published today, that when she was 24, Brand flashed his penis at her as she walked into his dressing room. Now, the alleged victim said she felt unable to report what happened and feared that she would lose her job if she complained. Now, she then went out. The next day that this happened, she then went out with him. Now, when you're very young, okay, she's 24, it's still young, you can get confused. She may have wanted to go out with Russell Brand because he's a celebrity, might have helped with her career. But on the other hand, people get confused, they don't understand what's happened. But I don't know, at 24, working in the media, working in television, you're educated, you've got a degree, you've got a little bit of experience, You've probably had, a few boyfriends. You understand the human body. You're around celebrities all the time, or you should be because you're working in television. You should be used to it. So, does she have this infatuation with celebrity? Perhaps less than someone else, but being young and impressionable, perhaps she fell for it. So this is a problem. If you go out with someone, if you get raped, you can still go out with someone afterwards. Yeah, you can still do it, and the rapist still needs to be put away. But also, if you go out with someone and then claim years later that something happened, it does also ask questions. I can understand, a very young child being raped and then going to that person's house and then being raped again. I understand how this Stockholm syndrome or PTSD or confusion or not understanding things or returning to places. I understand, and that's very difficult for other people to understand, how a woman can be raped and then go back to the rapist, how a woman can be hit and go back to the hitter. It does happen, and it needs to be dealt with, and there's psychology involved in it, and it doesn't mean that the woman is lying at a later date. But there is still questions here. She goes on, Rachel, who's the woman, told the Times that after the incident, he invited her to his flat where they kissed and had sex. They later began a relationship, kept a complete secret. So, there you go. How is Russell Brand defending himself? He has people on his side. Elon Musk, Andrew Tate, maybe Joe Rogan, but he hasn't said anything. But I'll get to Joe Rogan in a minute. Now, if you look at Andrew Tate is somebody very intelligent, very clever, but he's got a history of working in the sex industry where he gets cams and he films women masturbating on the cams and he gets lots of money and claims that he's a billionaire. So he's made, let's say, £1 billion working on lust, working on sex. And he is a Muslim, and when he went to prison, he had a Quran. Look, this is hypocrisy. You can't run lust, which is one of the 7 deadly sins, which causes so many problems, sexual problems in the world, and also be a man to teach other people what to do. When you meet a leader, when you meet a shaman, when you meet a seer, one of the things that I always do is I look at the family and I look at his history and I say, has he got his family in order? Has he got his history in order? Because the family demonstrates history. If you've got a bad history with the kids will have a problem with you. So you can sort of see the family history by the way that the family conducts itself. Now, I know a lot of great shamans, and the shamans, they are famous, but they also have problems with their children. And I noticed later on that these guys were alcoholics and they robbed people and they weren't exactly who they purported to be. And I've also met people, great shamans, and their families are in order. Their houses are in order. Their land is in order. Their business is in order. They have a good reputation. And this is what you need to be judged by. You can't judge someone by your money and by your cars. That is a distraction. Andrew Tate shows off money. He shows things off, right? He's also a clever person. He's also got stuff to say. But lots of bad people. The devil's got nice things to say as well. It's not to say Andrew Tate's bad. It's just to say you can't judge him on social media. You can't judge him by the face that he presents. You've actually got to know who he is. He hasn't written any amazing works. He's sent some ideas out there. But the thing about Andrew Tate, he's labeled as a misogynist, but really he's pushing back against, women's anti-masculine, toxic masculine thing. Toxic masculinity is destroying many children, many male children. It's making them confused. It might make them want to transition. And people like Andrew Tate, people like Joe Brand, people like David Icke, they're pushing back. They're saying, look, a man is a man and a man should be a man and there's nothing wrong with being a man. So Andrew Tate is one of those pillars or foundations alongside, Peterson, pushing back against the system, which is trying to destroy some people might say, white men. And if you take the white out of it, it's still men, okay? So even black guys have got the problem. Even when you've got to pay child support or alimony, I think it's called in America, even if you're black, you've still got to pay it. Even if you're black, it's still against you, or brown or yellow or pink or whatever it is. So men are accused of toxicness as well in the past. men are responsible for the rape of women, the misogyny, the wars, the torture, and especially white people. It's the white people are accused of the slave trade, even though they dismiss the Muslim slave trade, which went on after the white slave trade, which was stopped by white people. And it was white people that stopped the Muslim slave trade as well. And slave, by the way, comes from Slav, which means white person. So the first slaves that were linked to a word were actually white people. White people, slaves, Slavs from northern Europe. So you've got to remember that. So Elon Musk is out there now. Elon Musk is getting attacked because he took over Twitter, which is sort of the left. Okay, so where's Russell Brand in this? Russell Brand is going to be labelled as alternative right. Alternative right are labelled as conspiracy theorists and Republicans, or conservatives, or the right. It's not true. If you look at Joe Rogan is liberal. He is not left. He is not right. He's not fascist. And one of the things that the left do is they say anyone that's involved in alternative media is fascist, is Nazi. And this is ridiculous. It's not a good thing to say, because you're just basically dividing people, which is what Trump was done, which was what Trump's job was to do, was to divide the nation so that one hated the other. So you've then got, so Elon Musk and Andrew Tate, they're there, and Elon Musk seems to be supporting Russell Brand. Now, in the past, Russell Brand was deeply involved with drugs and promiscuity. Now, a lot of these guys, he was also Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna are about mysticism. So in spiritualities, there are mystical branches. So, for instance, what should be the mystical branch in Christianity should be Gnosticism. In Islam, it's Sufism. In Judaism, it's the Kabbalah. In Buddhism, you could say Bon Buddhism. The Dalai Lama, they've got shamans, because Bon is shaman and it linked with Buddhism. In Hinduism, you got Shiva, you got magic, you got tantras, you got tantric sex. In Zen, I don't know much about Zen actually, but you have these links. So Russell Brand, he's got a mystical link to Hare Krishna, which helped him a lot get out of drugs. He's got a drug addicted past, which is going to affect the brain. He's addicted to sex and promiscuity, and he pushed promiscuity. He enjoyed it. He told people that's what he was doing. He made it out to be a good thing. He made his money off it, which is not a good thing to do, because what you're doing as a celebrity is you're misleading a lot of people. How many people did Russell Brand mislead? How many people did he send them down a promiscuous path to go and have sex with as many women as you possibly can? Now, from an energetic point of view, a spiritualist point of view, the majority of people would say promiscuity is not the best thing to do. You should guard it, and you should be careful with your partner, because you don't know what you're exchanging, and you want to know that your partner is clean and that you haven't come from like a long lineage of different men or different women in that, they charged, or they got loads of like energies that aren't particularly good that they're going to pass to you and pass to other people. So it's not good to be promiscuous. It's better to devote your time to other things, to a pursuit of, let's say, consciousness, because the pursuit of women takes up all your time, takes your money, takes your energy, and takes your sperm, and it can lead to abortions and pregnancies which are unwanted, which can lead to lots of problems. So one of the things in society and the media is that we are titillated and tantalized by the media in order to sexualize and hypersexualize, which starts as children, especially with the LGBT, which is bringing in sexualization, teaching people oral sex, anal sex from very young ages, and telling them to experiment and to masturbate, which is not particularly, in my view, a particularly good thing to do. So the alternative media are pushing against it, which is probably, I think, what Russell Brand's doing. And there is a lot of attacks against that. So people are going to attack them, like David Icke. David Icke was mocked by Russell Brand, by the way, so they are not friends, but they are part, let's say, of the same club, and they sort of like pushed together. So the problem is that in this instance, you might have a case where you dump so-called conspiracy theorists or alternative media people into the alternative media bucket. Now, the big alternative media people, the professionals, the good people, the ones that haven't had any sexual allegations against them, are sort of like Max Egan, David Icke, Joe Rogan, let's say, and they've got a good history. They've got a good history of being sober most of the time, not telling people about their past and their problems, offering good advice. But Russell Brand mocked David Icke, and then at a later stage realized that David Icke was actually telling the truth, and then sort of came into that box, because Russell Brand came across to me at the beginning as a sort of a left-wing libertarian person that had some ideas in his head that were got from mysticism and Hinduism, that when he spoke sounded very good, and he was invited to speak to the Dalai Lama because he was seen as an appropriate person. But someone that's promiscuous, that talks spiritual, is not someone that is supposed to be interviewing people of a spiritual nature, if you think that the Dalai Lama is of a spiritual nature, which some people don't think. Now, if you go to Joe Rogan, comparing, so it says here, amidst his denial of the allegations, the 48-year-old Russell Brand said, "We have seen coordinated media attacks before," referring to Joe Rogan announcing he had taken anti-parasite drug ivermectin to treat his COVID-19 infection during the pandemic. Okay, now there's a big difference, right, between taking a drug or taking a medicated drug and having 4 or 5 sexual abuse allegations. And so what I see in this is Russell Brand trying to align himself with someone like Joe Rogan and take some of that energy. And so, Joe Rogan's been accused of the same thing that I've been accused. We're both victims of this witch hunt. No, there's a big difference between a witch hunt against R. Kelly or Michael Jackson or Jimmy Savile or Russell Brand. These are things with a pattern of sexual abuse going over a long period of time. What's also quite interesting is Andrew Tate is saying, alongside the image, he captioned an image, "Welcome to the club, Russell Brand." What he said is, "On my way to fight the crazy bitch allegations." Okay, so this is Andrew Tate, and this is the meme, "On my way to fight the crazy bitch allegations." So basically they present themselves as knights in shining armor in this chivalrous code in order to protect males, and what's attacking males are crazy bitches. The other thing is that they think it's part of the Matrix. Okay, so Brand's video calling it a Matrix attack. So what this means is that they think that the Matrix is a prison and it's got an Illuminati blueprint that's been built in, that's got offices, and then that's sort of linked to people outside the Matrix, which are sort of demons, and then they sort of create links to each other through satanic rituals. And so the Matrix is a prison that's keeping us here. And then when you start to red pill and tell people what's going on, the Matrix as a whole attacks you. Now, it is true, when you're talking the truth, you do get attacked. In Muhammad got attacked, Jesus got attacked. I'm sure Buddha actually got attacked. Lots of these like sages, they get attacked from demons to sort of pull them down, but it's also a test at the same time. But Muhammad and Jesus didn't get attacks of sexual abuse. They got attacks of eating or hunger or lust. But not five attacks of sexual abuse. The other thing that happened of Russell Brand is that there was a show called Fawlty Towers, and there was a actor called Andrew Sachs. Andrew Sachs was about 80, and he had a granddaughter called Georgina Bailey. Russell Brand, being the Lothario that he was, went out with Georgina Bailey, and then with another celebrity, Jonathan Ross, they called up Andrew Sachs, and they got to his answer phone, and on live radio, Russell Brand told Andrew Sachs that he had had sex with his granddaughter. He then had to make an apology. But at that time, it was sort of accepted. There was lots of people that found it funny. There was lots of people that liked it. It's just with the woke agenda that now you look at this stuff, you get cancelled. But back then, that was the point, I believe, that he went to America. When this happened, when he did this, he went to America and he made it in Hollywood. That's how he got out of it. He left the country. And then, if you want to link things together, then when the allegations in Hollywood started coming out, he came back to England. Now, he's a Lothario. he went out with Jemima Goldsmith, Katy Perry, Kate Moss, Sienna. He's gone out. The woman that he's married at the moment, her sister is also famous, as her father was. He is a Lothario. He manages to go out. He manages to seduce lots of very beautiful, rich, talented, celebrated women. Now, in order to seduce people, it's a little bit of a jinn. It's a little bit of a don. It's a little bit of a genie. It you know, to dazzle, to lambast, to get the soul of another woman or their feelings or their emotions. You need to understand how women work. You know, it's a little bit of a science. But also, in order to have lust, right? It's a demon. It's an energy. And so what you're doing is this. What you can do is, as a magician, you can ask spirit, right? As a black magician, you can ask spirit to help you conquer women, and women fall in love. You get something about you. You get a sparkle in your eye. You get an energy. So you can do it through fame. Fame is an aphrodisiac in itself. Being a strange famous person, more of an aphrodisiac. And then if you've played with the occult or you've done something like that, then you can get it even more. A lot of people want to become rich and famous, and they use the occult and things like that to do it. I'm not saying Russell Brand's done that, but what I'm saying is that lust can be gotten. Women falling in love with you can happen, can be made to happen through ceremonies and things like that. Other people have it naturally. If you do have it naturally, people tend to abuse it. And that's probably a test sent by whoever it is to see what you're going to do with your ability to be able to conquer women. If you've got lots of money, you can do lots of things with it. You can help people, or you can buy cars. If you've got lots of power, you can put people into prison, or you can change society. If you've got the ability to seduce people, you can maybe do it for the good, or you can do it for the bad. So these are all like dons or things that we get given in order to test us. Sadie Frost, that was her name. So personally speaking, you've got 5 people that have come forward. They're educated. One is an alcoholic, but they're in rehab. You've got 5 people that have come forward in different countries within the space of a small amount of time. They've all been raped. I think they've all been raped. There's a very young person involved. Nothing illegal has happened. And 2 of the women have talked about an instance where his eyes changed to something demonic, which is something which is known in occult circles. And so my feeling is that I'm not happy with what he said. Also, his agents getting rid of him. The agents is like Philip Schofield. Philip Schofield did the same thing. Philip Schofield went out with a runner, but the runner didn't complain. It was other people that complained. It was like Eamon Holmes. There was sort of like this revenge attack going on. But the problem with Philip Schofield is that his brother was a pedophile and just went to prison. And within like a month of his brother going to prison for doing something to a 14-year-old boy, Philip Schofield is then accused of approaching a boy that was part of a theatre that he was involved in and following him or something on Instagram or something when he was only 15, but a sexual relationship didn't happen until they were 18. I actually am in the opinion that I actually do believe Philip Schofield. I don't think these people are very nice. Holly Willoughby, Philip Schofield, they're all horrible people. They want to be on television. They want fame. They want money. They push narrative. They push things that we don't want. They conjure up, ideas in people's heads. They're not seers. They're not religious people. They're not philosophical people. They don't have a large acumen of intellect. They're not widely read on spiritual material, but yet they guide us in this system, like politicians. They shouldn't be guiding us. We need different people at the helm of the ship. You don't put someone at the helm of the ship that's got big tits and gets a vagina out in public, or somebody that says funny things and looks handsome. The pilot of the boat you want is someone that's educated, know what he's doing and know where he's going. But people like ourselves have been trained to accept fools and idiots to run our country and to get into our heads through televisions in order to change our perspective of reality, which leads the boat or the modern narrative to a place that they want it to go.